managing, leading a team. Have this conversation. We have Danny Horanyi. Danny, welcome to the call, brother.
Good morning.
Good morning. Danny has been on, I don't know, too many times for me to even count anymore how many times you've been on a Mortgage Coach, Danny. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation. And then we also have Michele Town. And Michele, I interviewed you for the first time this year, and I don't want to steal any thunder, but it made the list of the top 12 Mortgage Coach interviews of the year. So congratulations and thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Good morning.
All right. So for anybody that wasn't on last week's call, what brought this to head is I was telling everybody last week that it was the last call of the year. And then someone, or multiple people had it on their list that their 2017 goals were building their teams. And so it just seemed appropriate that we'd have a conversation around that. Both Danny and Michele have been participants within Insane Productivity, but it's pretty obvious they're not participants, they're leaders. And so first of all, you guys, next year, hopefully you can be on the leadership side, with Todd Bookspan and I and some of the other leaders as we do these calls. But for now, we just want to focus on building a team. Why should you build a team? How do you build a team? As much as possible, I'd like the questions to come from people on the call. But I did post in our Facebook group. It looks like only 14 people have viewed it. So feel free to multitask. Well, you should be able to see it on my screen. You don't need to multitask. You can just look at my screen. These are the 23 questions for consideration today. If you don't jump in and make suggestions on what questions you want me to ask, then I will just, use my gut and ask the questions I think most appropriate. But for now, Michele, if you could just quickly share your production, your team, in as much detail as possible, and then if Danny, you'd be ready to do the same thing, and then we'll just start the questions.
Sure thing. Hi, everybody. Happy Friday. So first of all, we had a major milestone on Wednesday. We closed we hit 100 million on Wednesday. So we were very excited. My team at this time for this year has composed of myself. I'm the only originator on my team. And then I have Michael Frazier, who is for all intents and purposes, my partner. He's my left and right hand. He helps collect documents. He helps if I make a mistake on my pre-qual. I have Jessica and Joey, who are both my closing team. They push the file all the way through closing. And then I have one data entry person that just added to my team this year. He manages my database, my social media. And then I share a marketing person with one other RPM employee who is incredibly talented that, picks all my content for anything that's going to be printed or works with my realtor partners to make sure that our co-branded flyers are in compliance with RESPA and RPM.
Great.
And then I have let me not forget the biggest part. My bank is my biggest supporter. They execute on everything that my team delivers. So that was huge for me.
All right. So obviously 100 million in production for the year. Congratulations. Great team. We'll get into it in more detail in just a minute. Danny, if you could do the same, provide a little bit of an overview on your practice and your team, and then we'll get into the questions.
So first off, the team. So we have it broken up with myself and two business partners are working on lead generation, kind of team leadership, process structure, and we kind of collaborate around that. My two partners, Sam Hansen and Bill Gaylor, have actually been on Mortgage Coach calls also. The team is right now about 27 people, originators, and then we've kind of broken up the process into what we call front end, back end, following the core coaching model, if anybody's familiar with that. And so the front end piece, we have about 7 people. They're taking incoming leads from agents, other referral sources. They're also managing any database calls that become necessary if we move into a great market that require, it seems like there's refinance opportunities, kind of an all hands on deck situation. So there's about 7 people that are in that area, and then we have 8 people on the back end, and they do essentially transaction management. So once a loan is locked or a contract comes in, they'll handle it from that handoff point and take it all the way through closing. And their job's a little bit different from a processor in the sense that the processor's job is to actually close the loan and the mechanics of it. The back-end partner, we also call them personal loan managers. Their primary mission is to make the client happy and to position it so that all the parties in that transaction are interested in meeting with us and then referring business to us in the future. So from a unit standpoint, this year we're looking at just our kind of core team that we manage and grow and lead is we're currently at 687 units for about 324 million.
Wow. All right. So that lays it out well. Do you want to just follow along with some of the things I've been showing online? So I showed both Danny and Michelle's LinkedIn pages. I pulled up some web assets along the way. For those of you that are building teams, I always just think it's super prudent that you find people that you want to emulate. Like, gosh, that's where I want to go. For someone who wants to go from 2 or 3 assistants to building a bigger practice, Danny and the Gaylord Hanson model is just great. Someone that wants to go from, I have no team and I want to have a team. I'm not saying you can't learn from the Gaylord Hanson team, because you certainly can. And maybe Michelle's the right fit, but maybe, finding someone who's at 30 million as a personal producer and is trying to take it to the next level. The point I want to make is you want to pick a model. You want to pick a model that you want to implement. You want to pick a role model that you want to that will take your calls and help mentor you. And that's one of the reasons why I did a search in the Mortgage Coach YouTube page. And Andrew Paul, is a great inspirational branch manager with a team that you might want to follow. So there's a lot of calls that we've done on team building. I just want to, start the call with find someone that can be your mentor. If you don't have a professional coach that's your accountability manager, it really starts with having the right leaders, the right inspirational accountability managers in your life. So hopefully that's handled. So let's get into the first question, and let's make it all about why team. And Michele, if you could go first on that, and then if you could even speak back to maybe thinking about before you had a team, when you were early in, I don't have a team, I want to have a team, why team, and then obviously you've evolved since then.
Absolutely. So I started building this team 2 years ago. The concept came into my head, and because I was stuck. I was doing 40 to 50 million by myself. I was exhausted. I was working 12 to 16-hour days. Even some of my top referral partners were always saying, and this is the word that I hate, and I don't hear this anymore, you always sound so busy. And I was. They didn't need to know that. So after many months of struggling, and anybody who listened to my story knew I had a meltdown where I had to take 30 days off. When I came back from that break and break down, break through, I realized that I couldn't do it myself anymore. That if I wanted to achieve certain goals, I needed to get help, and I needed to hire the right help. So that's what initially started me going, okay, I want to reach a certain number. This is my goal. And more so, I want to do it where I'm helping families where they're not feeling like they're a number. And I felt, doing 50 million by myself was difficult, and trying to manage the relationships as well. So I started with first a dialer, somebody who could take some of the incoming leads off of my plate and kind of do some of the pre-call work, not pre-call, but at least get the basic information from me. And that's how everything started. I did that for a year, and about a year later I realized, that's not enough anymore. And I talked to my company, and one of the biggest things that I told them, I said, if I need to make money, I need to invest in myself. So I personally dropped my comp so that I could pay for another team member till I could show them that this team concept worked. It did pay off in the long run for me, for sure. We started we started building another partner, a really strong TC for me that could really qualify, that had the mortgage knowledge, that didn't want to be in sales. And then we just naturally progressed from there. And this year, and I'm sure we'll talk about it this year, what we're planning to do, but you have to invest in yourself first. Sometimes that means you have to take a little bit less pay for yourself so that you can grow a little bit more. To me, I really believe in Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. And even in light of this market that we're about to hit with increasing rates, I'm not worried. We still, with the new team that we have in place, we've told our company that we're going to hit $240 million with a minimum of 350 units.
Love it. So, by the way, did everybody hear? Did I hear that right? You were doing 54 million and you didn't have a team? That was personal production?
Correct.
And, there's so many loan officers that, they want a team and they're not even closing 5 loans a month consistently. What advice do you have? What is the right point? You might have waited too long. My guess is you probably should have started a team earlier. But I think some people want to start a team too soon also. What's just right from your perspective? How does someone know when it's time?
I actually think that everybody should start with, and even if you share this, somebody who can help manage your database and make outbound phone calls for you, it's going to be incredibly lucrative for you because you can't do it all. And that's what insane productivity has gotten me to accept about myself, is I cannot do it all myself, and I am not, the best and highest use for me is not to be processing paperwork. Although I can do it, I have people on my team that are better than that. So my advice for anybody who has, is doing production of, let's say 10, 15 million, that's still amazing production. What you got to do is, if you want to take that next step, first, hire a coach. You need a coach. They will walk you through how to build your team and help you get the right personalities in your team. And the second is, if you can't afford it, or you don't think you have enough business to bring in, for just you, partner up with somebody else who's doing the same volume as you and say, hey, how would you guys like to share a TC, or share a business developer, or share a outbound caller that can start making some calls for us? That, I would say, now is the time. Don't wait, because if you wait, you're going to end up working 18-hour days, and that day that you get that phone, this is when I knew, when that realtor calls you and says, you know what, you sound too busy, I went ahead and gave that loan to Wells Fargo. That was it for me. I said I will never let that happen again.
Right on. So Mark Thompson has a question. We'll get to it in a minute, but I wanted you and Danny to be able to think about it. Danny, you're going to be up on your why in a minute, but I just want to get this question out. He said it would be interesting to hear the deal flow from lead to client forever. So Michele, I'm going to come back to you in a minute with that question. Also, Norma had already submitted a question saying number 3 is her favorite. What are you doing to grow your capabilities as a leader? So I'm just getting it out there so that you both know that question is coming. So Danny, it's now your turn for that first question. Why team? And of course, whether you want to ask it within the question, when is the right time to start a team? Your thoughts on both of those?
I'll start with that first, because I think Michele's point is spot on, is that there's really not too soon. You should focus in. If you focus in on your big 3, what you're going to find is you absolutely need help right away. So if you're doing 4 or 5 deals a month, well, you're not even doing your big 3 yourself, right? You're not executing around that well. So you can probably look inward and focus in on things you might be able to enhance, time that might be not spent well already. But ultimately, if you're firing on all the cylinders in terms of what your big 3 are, your most important job duties, you're going to absolutely need that person that can, jam through tax returns, or, bust out a pre-approval letter in 15 minutes when you're in a client meeting, and, figure out how to do that. So, and we did exactly the same thing. Initially we had to lower our comp in order to set the stage for, the company really recognizing, hey, these fixed expenses that you guys are bringing on, that's scary to kind of the old way of thinking in the mortgage industry. And we're still not in a place where kind of at a corporate level, you know, most companies are really embracing a team model. They kind of see it as almost like something that works for some, but is not really kind of for mass consumption, which this leads right into the why. One of the reasons we evolved the team, we started this in 2008, started building the team in 2008, and have been adding people ever since then, is twofold. One, because it almost became necessary for us to start to add, we couldn't recruit quality people. And when I say we couldn't, I mean, certainly there were people that wanted to join our organization from an origination standpoint, but when we got them, they just were not the right cultural fit for what we were looking for. They were coming out of the fast and easy times, and we just, for some reason, couldn't get somebody that could really engage with the way we were doing business. And so we were like, well, let's just start from scratch. You know, what if we just hire a processor maybe and then evolve them into a salesperson, or we hire somebody from the insurance industry who is already a salesperson and teach them mortgage. And so we started kind of figuring out how to do that because we had a need for people to handle the leads that were coming in, and we just couldn't find the right originators kind of recruit under a normal branch model. And then the real kind of the deeper why is that we wanted to impact more people, and we knew that our individual talents were not going to do the trick and have the kind of impact on the marketplace that we were looking for. We had a little bit bigger vision, and we really want to set the bar in the mortgage industry so high that our competition can't even keep up with it. They look at that bar and they say, well, okay, I'm going to give up first place and I'm going to play for second. And so we can only do that if we're operating at in a super efficient way, which means that we need all of the players on the team to be doing what they're best at and having all the other duties handled by someone else, which means that workflow and teamwork.
Love it. So folks, you know, I'm a big fan, and I always think the question after the question could be the most valuable question. But I really want to make this call about you on this call, the people that, you know, we're in the holiday season, a week from Christmas, and you're on a call to become insanely productive, and we are all going through this insane productivity journey together. So the more this serves your interest and not me just doing a top producer interview, the better. So I see a couple questions submitted. No one has raised their hand yet, although Mark, since you were key to getting this interview going, do you have a question for everybody?
Yeah, good morning. First of all, thank you, everybody, Danny and Michele, for doing this. This is really, really awesome and incredibly inspirational. It really goes back to the question that I wrote to Dave. One of the things that I would be really interested in is learning what your flow is. From that lead coming in, that first contact with your client, when you're doing that total cost of ownership or mortgage coach, through the mortgage process to a forever client. I realize you could probably spend 2 hours doing that, but if you could just get some highlighted points and then also point out which team members you have doing certain things along the way, that would be incredibly helpful.
So stay on this call, Mark, because I want to make sure that question gets answered in a way that hits your expectations. And then Michele, if you could go first with walking us through that.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm going to call them, he's my, for lack of it, my production partner. My production partner, incoming call comes in. It's directed to me to do the initial talk to the client. I always like to talk to the clients to get a feel for what they're looking for, if there are any challenges that are going to come up. And then what I explain to the client is, this is now going to my production partner, back to Michael Frazier. He will be asking you to complete some information online, an application. Michael and how this new is going to work, Michael and Lacey are both working up the file, getting the pre-approval letter done, typing up the pre-approval, comes back for one last glance at me to make sure that it meets all the guidelines, and the pre-approval sent out. File goes to, I'm always the one on the phones with the agent, so I call the agent, let them know that's pre-approved. We have an advance approved program, so I always remind them to let me talk to the listing agent when they submit an offer. When the file is executed, contract is executed, it goes to our closing team now. That closing team now orders appraisal, orders escrow, contacts the borrower for final conditions, submits the file to underwriting, handles any conditions for funding, and then the loan closes. So very similar. I don't have as big a team right now, but we are growing it. That's one of. I'm so glad. Thank you for sharing your team model, because it's about what we're looking to do as well. And then during that whole time, for me, I felt like having so many people touching files, I was going to lose contact or familiarity with my clients. So I have my CRM reminds me every 5 days to call the borrower and the agents just to check in, let them know how things are going. I can't do them all in one day because I had too many loans. I just couldn't make all the phone calls in one day. So mine is triggered at the day the contract goes, or the day the file goes to contract, that my 5-day window starts there, and I let everybody know I'll be calling you every 5 days to let you know what's going on, so that I kept the familiarity with the clients.
Any add-on questions to that, or did that answer your question to at least for good enough for now?
Yes. So I mean, thank you, Michele. So what I'm hearing is you're maintaining the relationship with the clients. I heard yourself. I heard you've got your loan partner who's kind of taking care of gathering the information to kind of put things together. But then is it that you hand that then off to the data entry person? Is that what I understood? And that's the person who kind of does, I don't know, the nuts and bolts, so to speak?
No, our closing team takes care of the nuts and bolts. So my production partner, or loan assistant, he pretty has much the brunt of the work right now, which is why we've hired on a second one, because he was just getting overwhelmed. So his job is to make sure that that file fits the guidelines for whatever program we're going to. His job is to make sure that we have all the documentation, or as much as we need to get the pre-approval out. And his job is to, get this done within 24 hours. We have a 24-hour rule on pre-approval, unless there's some hair on the deal. Once that deal is then executed, he now passes it off to the closing team. The closing team then finishes it. So he doesn't get back involved in it unless there is a problem. So the way I have a problem set up is that problem only gets to me if it's escalated to the point where the file is about to fall apart. Because I don't want to be involved in the chatter on the loan. I call it chatter. I want to be involved in just the big decision making on the loans. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And is that partner, is he a licensed loan officer?
He is. Everybody, just so you know, every single person on my team is licensed. I made that a requirement.
Excellent.
Okay. Hey, by the way, before we jump off that, where is the TCA and the total cost analysis? If you could just speak to that for a minute, and then Danny, when you do yours in a minute, make sure that's included in the process.
Okay, so I skipped, I guess, the biggest portion. So as I'm working up the file for the client and we're going over what they want, what purchase price, what program, we are using the total cost analysis at that point. If it's a renter or a first-time home buyer, I'm using the rent versus own because that seems to have a bigger impact on them. But I will show them the programs. And right now, especially, Dave, you should see mine start going up because I am running 2-1 buy downs down. I'm running interest only down. I'm running adjustable programs to kind of, lessen that shock of that payment now that interest rates are going up. So that is key. That goes out before we even collect any paperwork. Sometimes it will go out after we collect paperwork if I don't know enough about the file. But I actually do all that. My TC or my PA does not do that right now. But he's learning it.
Got it. So you're doing the mortgage coach input and all the strategic and connecting back to your original description. That is part of your borrower consultation.
Correct. Part of my borrower consultation. And then and then one more time do I do that is when we get to an executed contract, I will contact the borrower and congratulate them, and then we'll talk about where rates are at that time. and I'll ask them at that point, do you want to look at different options, or were you preset with the original options that we sent? So sometimes we do 2 mortgage coach analysis depending on where the rates are at. Sometimes we just do 1, but they love it, and I push them to the phone app because it's easier for me to, it's easier for me to show them how to use it too. They love it.
Nice. Cool. And then Troy asked which, I don't want to get in, we could spend another whole call on CRM, but, which CRM do you use to track the process as a team?
I use Big Purple Dot.
Got it. And everybody in your organization uses it? Everybody in your team?
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody on my team does, but not in my organization. We have an internal one that is not set up to manage a team. It's great to manage a singular thing, but it's not meant to task. Like I task through my Big Purple Dot. So when a file comes in, I'll task it to one of my team members, and it goes into their queue, and they immediately, pull up their queue every day. They know exactly what they need to do.
Okay, good. All right, guys. So thank you very much. Danny, you're up to bat. Same question, same flow, and rock it out, brother.
So Michele, our process is super, super similar. So it's just over time, it sounds like we just have kind of more legs because we've been developing it longer, but really it's almost identical. So I'll go very quickly because there's not going to be a lot of fresh info. So the lead the initial call or introduction will typically come to me, and I'll do what we call internally the hopes and dreams call. The goal is for that to take 15 minutes maximum, and it's really just to get a touch point and for me to kind of gauge the client's modality, right, their profile. So are they, is it a Qualcomm engineer, or is it a school teacher, firefighter, military, like kind of get a feel for what they're looking for, and then actually ask those questions. What are your goals? What tell me about the house. Why is this particular feature important to you? And just kind of get a little bit of trust built before, and I usually introduce that as, really appreciate you reaching out or us connecting. Want to just ask you a couple questions so I can make sure our team's going to be a good fit for you and in accomplishing your goals. And so I ask those questions and then conclude it with, it does sound like we're going to be able to produce a really good solution. What I'd like to do at this point, if it's okay, is introduce my business partner, Eric, or Garrett, or Simone, whoever it is at the time that is going to fit that personality well. And what they're going to do is gather up some information that'll allow us to do a really thorough analysis so that we can share with you what options are available. And then at that point, there's a handoff. I set an appointment on the calendar with one of the team members. So yeah, for example, Garrett, he's one of our front end. Eric next to him is one of our front end. And I'll go to Eric's calendar and I'll plug in an application appointment with the client. Eric will take the 1003. He'll send the needs list, gather up all the documentation. He'll review it, input it all into the system, run to you or whatever analysis is necessary. He'll review all the guidelines. He'll build out the mortgage coach, input all the details as he sees it. Him and I will consult on it for 10 minutes, and then I'll make a call. Eric and I together will call the client as a team, and we'll share the edge presentation, or if we're really lucky, we'll get them to come in. It seems like fewer and fewer people actually want to come into the office these days, especially with all the technology available, but we really enjoy those face-to-face meetings and have higher conversion when they happen. But ultimately, the goal is to get them that edge presentation within 24 hours, and that's what we commit to them in the beginning is, we're going to, we use a script that goes something like, we see ourselves as mortgage planners. We want to give you not just the, your interest rate that you're going to get, but how the choices you have will impact you short, medium, and long term. And this awesome tool we have is going to help with that. And that's when we, kind of sell them, get them excited about the edge presentation even before it's there. And that excitement then translates to energy with them getting us their documentation so that we can actually do that analysis and provide it to them. So we do the mortgage coach kind of pre-approval mortgage coach edge presentation, and then they go shopping. At this point, whoever the front-end partner is doing all the follow-up. And that's all triggered through our Salesforce workflow. Salesforce is the CRM that we use. It has predetermined offsets for when we're going to be keeping in touch with the people. So let's say it's Eric or Garrett. They do all of that follow-up calling, and they do all the pre-approval letters and calls to the listing agent. I still do some of those every once in a while, especially when they know that it's going to be a big one. They'll loop me in and say, hey, this listing agent would be really great if you call them, or that I looked in Salesforce and it says you worked with them 5 times. Maybe it'd be good coming from you, kind of thing. And they know that we can kind of trust each other. That if they decide that it's on them, that I can trust that's the right call, and vice versa. That they know that they can always bring me back in and rely on me to be there as a weapon for them if they need it. So then do they get in contract? We do another edge presentation to share with them their options to lock, get the loan locked in. Then it moves over to the personal loan manager, who's that back-end loan partner. The back-end loan partner then fully takes over, and they introduce themselves as the kind of hub of communication, air traffic controller. We use a lot of airline analogies to fit mortgage really well for some reason. And so they kind of handle that whole process from there. And in a perfect world, the front-end partner and myself are not brought back in to the transaction. They manage the whole thing with the client. And in fact, usually at that point, I'm not talking to the client again personally. The personal loan manager and the front-end partner are managing that whole conversation and keeping everybody on point. And then my participation from in the midst of the transaction is to contact the listing agent and buying agent on 2 times, one at contingency removal or whenever the earnest money deposit or good faith deposit goes hard, whatever in your market. Here in California, it's called contingency removal, and then at close of escrow. And those calls, I kind of scripted them out on a previous mortgage coach call, but the mid escrow one is to be super vulnerable and ask for constructive feedback from the listing agent and buying agent on how our team can get better. And then the closing call is to thank them, appreciate the fact that we wouldn't have been able to close on time or early without a professional real estate agent on the other side. And all that's facilitated by the fact that the back-end partner, the personal loan manager, has really aggressively been hitting those dates and making micro commitments and then meeting them. And they really tee me up to have a successful conversation at closing, asking for the business, because they've done their part all the way through. And we can leverage that over many, many units per month because everybody knows what their job is.
Wow. I want to call out a few things there, and then Mark, I'll let you make sure that met your expectations. So loved what you called the opening call, the hopes and dreams call. I've interviewed so many of the nation's most successful loan officers, and that's such a differentiator between loan officers that they're successful and loan officers that kill it, is that loan officers that kill it are really getting into the hopes, dreams, and goals of their families, and then they're using the mortgage coach to help tell that mortgage story. And then I love, Danny, when you were kind of walking through the last process, there's this proactive, are we meeting your expectations call, and then there's a thank you call. And that reminds me my most recent interview with Jeremy Forcier, where when I asked him what his critical few were, it was so clear, it was so simple for him. It was, I prospect 20 hours a week. Everybody gets a total cost analysis because I want to make sure they understand their goals, and I'm involved in every celebration. I'm always part of the celebration, the thank you, the celebration. So I thought that was huge, the way you laid that out. Mark, any follow-up questions for Danny, and did that meet your expectations?
Yeah, that was awesome. I too love the title, The Hopes and Dreams, as opposed to calling it the initial consultation. Another thing too that I heard that Danny was saying was the proactive. I think you called it getting micro commitments along the way, which I think is a great idea as far as for that production partner to be able to put through. So thank you. That was very helpful. I took a lot of notes.
So guys, this call, I don't know about you, but I think you guys are just crushing it. So I have been doing my best to give some homework assignments along the way. I mean, when I'm putting these links in and I'm doing these lookups, my expectations isn't that everybody's going to watch every call I'm prescribing, but I'm trying to go in based off the conversations, hearing Michele say, oh, if you heard my story earlier, well, I posted her story. She told her story in her top producer interview earlier this year, and I put a link. She was with her coach, Cindy Ertman, who, as everybody knows, is one of the leaders and facilitators of this insane productivity program. So if you want to hear Cindy and Michele, check it out. I put a few links from Danny. I couldn't help within this team conversation. One of the most all-time watched training videos that we ever did was Tim Brahim's Perfect Loan Process. if you have not watched that and you want to build a team, it's only 25 minutes long, and yeah, in my opinion, he's one of the greatest loan officers of all time, and certainly one of the greatest mortgage coach loan officers of all time. So great 25-minute video that I prescribed and I put in here. I did put in one of Danny's total cost analysis because it came up. And then one of the things that we try to do is, while I did this came from a 1-hour interview, but there was one part of it where he talked about how he does the borrower updates. And so we just have a 4-minute and 13-second video on, how Danny does his borrower updates, and I put that in there. So I'll keep doing this along the way. Mark, unless you have another question, I'm going to put you back on mute. Are you good?
I'm good. Thank you very much, Dave.
All right. So I want to make sure that the folks that showed up today and have questions they want to answer, I want to make sure they get answered. So the CRM question has been answered. Troy, hopefully you're good. If you want more, let us know. Mark, you're good. Norma wants to know, she said number 3. So number 3 on the list is, what are you doing today to grow your capabilities as a leader? Guys, I have a feeling this is going to take about, we'll probably have time for one more question. So as you can see, I've got 23 questions. If you want to get your questions answered, raise your hand or post them, or I'm going to be picking the last question or two. So Michele, why don't you go first? What are you doing to grow as a leader right now?
Well, I continually coach. I do a lot of, anybody who's on this insane productivity knows that I've done a lot to change to become a leader instead of a dictator. I've let go a lot and empowered my team. Probably one of the biggest mistakes that I made at the beginning of my team building was that I made everybody come to me first before they did anything. And that doesn't do anything. It depowers your team, and it makes them rely on you so much. And it was very hard because I'm a control freak, like any of us. And I don't solve the problems anymore. I help them solve the problems, and then I let them solve the problems so that they're the heroes in the story. I don't need to be the hero anymore. They can be the hero. I continually go. I do webinars. I do insane productivity. I just better myself as a human being first, and I find that when I better myself as a human being, that everything else falls in place. This year, just so you guys know, I have done zero focus on, building my business. I've done it more on building my character, and it has, I've done a 30% growth in business just by building who I was and becoming a true leader instead of a dictator.
Wow, that's awesome. And what's the name of it? I don't know if it was the last call or 2 calls ago. You got a book that you're writing. What did you call the title of it?
Okay, hopefully I don't offend anybody. It's called Retiring the Bitch, because I no longer am that person.
Michele, I'm so honored to have you as part of our community and how transparent you are in terms of kind of sharing your journey as a leader. I think everybody in the industry who's grown up in this business, we've all been there, where we've got to be the hero, the dictator. And anyways, it's cool to see where you're at now, and thanks for being an inspirational leader. Awesome answer. Danny, you're up. Same question.
By far the most important thing that I have been doing over the last 2.5 years and continue to do is read a ton of books. And when I say read, I mean listen on Audible in my drive in and out of work. Because basically every minute I'm in my car, I have some either leadership book or teamwork book or business process book that is playing while I'm driving, and that I'm getting through at least one a week, and I'm revisiting others. And Dave's been phenomenal about recommendations. Well, you have some pretty killer recommendations that I've taken on, and that they've just been awesome. But that's been massive for me, is just listening to books like Multipliers or Ideal Team Player, The Advantage. There's just I could list off probably 20 that are Extreme Ownership. Man, yes, that's a huge one. I mean, there's just a ton that you can get. That there's so much powerful information out in the world from people that have already experienced pain and been down the road, and you can have them help you peek around the corner so that you know what's coming, and that's been massive. And then the other thing, and I got actually this strategy from reading, and I'm not sure which book it was, maybe Ego is the Enemy or something like that, was about being super vulnerable with the team and just being honest that you're on a journey and you need their help. And so that change happened end of last year. We had our team culture wasn't really that awesome then, and it was good but not great, and you could feel the tension. And so at that point I was reading a ton, and I said, look guys, this is something that I'm actively working on, and I just need your help. And I promise you, if you come and tell me how I can get better, help you better, take your blockers away, help you grow, and what I'm doing either actively or passively to hurt our team without even knowing it, like, I give you total permission to come and put me on blast so that I can learn, because I want to be better. And there was a, as I'm sure you can imagine, a flood of people saying, hey, yeah, you kind of do screw this up a lot, or I don't know why you're in this. Like, it just seems like you don't trust me to do this job, and I can do it, and I'll prove it to you. And that was a huge lift, and it allowed us to grow. I feel like that was one of the major contributors to us growing our team about 50% in size this year.
Awesome answers. So couple things. I am, as you guys can see, I'm taking some notes. I'm putting some notes in chat. This will actually, I don't know if I'm going to post it this weekend or next, but we have figured out what are the top calls. And as you can see, Michele, your call was one of the top 10 calls of the year. But the number one, and it's not only number one, my favorite call, but I think just important calls as a leader, is this call with Jocko Willink, author of Extreme Ownership, and Andrew Paul. Just, if you haven't watched this as a Mortgage Coach member and a leader, it's my favorite leadership book of the year. And then the first week of the year, I interviewed Wally Elderberry, he could be on this call right now, just delivering incredible value. The thing I thought that was so interesting about him is he's not only does he have a team, he's a great leader, he's a regional leader with Cornerstone, but he's turned his leadership into a competitive advantage with realtors. So he coaches realtors. So this call was just about how he's taken his growth as a leader and a mentor, and then he's turned that into a value prop with real estate agents. And Danny, I know you guys do that also. We should actually do a call very intentionally around how you guys are mentors and leaders to some of your agents. But a couple calls and a couple homework assignments outside of this call. Okay. By the way, Danny, if there was one book on leadership that you had to give folks, what would it be? If there was one book everybody should read over the holiday here, what would your one recommendation book be from a leadership perspective?
From a team building perspective,
Yeah.
From a leadership perspective, 21 Laws, Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, John Maxwell. If you're looking to grow yourself as a leader, that is kind of a foundational, almost a textbook. Every other book that you'll read about leadership will kind of have its roots in the concepts that John shares in that one. And then for actual team building, I recommend The Advantage by Lencioni. I can never remember his first name.
Patrick Lencioni. Yeah,
Lencioni,
crazy.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was probably my favorite book in 2015. So awesome. I mean, and both of those books are insane. And then Michele, how would you answer that? If there were one or two books on leadership that people should consider reading over the holiday to prepare to crush it in 2017, what would they be?
Oh, for sure, Extreme Ownership by Jocko. It's an incredible book about, just say yes when everything's going bad. It's very hard to do, but you just say yes. And then I'm also a Jack Canfield fan. I really love his books, and I love his basic book, which for me, it helped me tremendously. And that one is just Jack Canfield, The Success Principles.
Love it, love it. By the way, guys, I'm going to post a little 2-minute video. It's a rant from Jocko called Good, and I'm not going to steal any thunder from it, but it's you want to just get a little 2-minute taste of Jocko, and when bad things happen, Jocko says good. Check it out. It'll give you a little little flavor for our guy Jocko. And again, it will be the #1 interview for Mortgage Coach of 2016, and I am currently working on scheduling Jocko again in 2017. So, all right. So good stuff. So we are down to the last 12 minutes. I don't have new questions coming in. So rather than me ask a question, Danny, I'm going to have you ask Michele a question that you think would be valuable for the audience. And then Michele, I'm going to have you ask Danny a question. And I'm guessing that'll bring us to a complete hour, and we'll have a great call. So Danny, what question do you have for Michele that you think would be valuable for everybody?
Michele, what are you doing? What proactive things are you doing to build up your team culture and kind of going into that double question, managing the conflict that naturally just arise when you start bringing people together in a kind of high stress process?
Oh, that was a great question. First, I'll do the managing the conflict because it kind of encompasses everything. Every single one of my team members is cross-trained. So we do not use the word can't. That is not allowed, and we don't use the word problem in our vocabulary. I've kind of eliminated it. We use the word challenge and can. That's what helps us. There is going to be conflict all the time, but we have a weekly meeting every Friday where we talk about two things. One is it takes about 20 to 30 minutes because we make it short. It gets better and better. Sometimes it's longer, but I always ask the team, am I helping you reach your goal? Each of them has to turn in goals every quarter of what they want to do and how they want to participate in the team, so that I can make sure if I have somebody who feels like they're not doing as much and they want to grow, that I can help them grow. The second thing is managing conflict. We actually have an open forum, and it is we always started out doing some breathing exercises, and we say, this is a growth opportunity. It's not to place blame. If you're having a challenge with the way somebody is speaking to a client, or you don't feel like somebody's pulling their weight, here's the time to bring it open. And we talk about it like adults. And we make jokes, we laugh by the time we're done. And I kind of use it, if you're ever married, you never go to bed mad, supposedly. Same thing with the team. I don't want to end the week where anybody's got a grudge to hold through the weekend, because then it just festers.
Awesome. Thank you.
Awesome question and awesome answer. Danny, anything else you want out of that, or do you feel like that met your expectations and that got everything we could out of Michele? Anything you want to add on to that?
That's perfect. Yeah, the open forum piece is something that we do also, which has been a game changer. It just gives an opportunity for people to share whatever their frustrations are. And having conversations like adults, I love how you said that, Michele, because I've never been able to articulate that in those meetings to everybody, but that's really what the goal is to stop the drama, stop the gossip, stop the smoke break silos, and, get to the table and actually talk about what we actually want to see, not just what we are seeing that we don't like. And it's been a massive game changer. But I like what you said about that.
All right, Michele, let's see what kind of question you can throw at Danny and see what kind of answer you can bring back to everybody. What do you got?
Okay, so Danny, when hiring a team, do you do any DISC profiles or personality profiles to make sure that they're doing their highest and best use, which then leads on to the second part of it as well, which is how do you make sure that the person that you selected for that particular portion of the team, if that is all that they're ever going to be doing, how do you set the expectations for them if that's just their position for now? Do you give them an opportunity for growth, or do you tell them, this is your position, I know it's boring, like the data entry, let's just say, but this is part of the job, and how do you make him feel like that is one of the most important parts of the team?
Super good question. So the first piece, the DISC profile, absolutely. We have every team member does a DISC profile. We have them all stored where anybody can view them, and that it's actually been super cool because when we do have conflict, sometimes we'll reference the person's DISC and just it gives a little bit of insight. It's almost like you read the initial summary of the disc profile, and it's like going to a fortune teller where they just like know all about you from answering 7 minutes of questions. It's bananas. And we use that to kind of frame how people interact with each other. Absolutely, though, we pull the disc profile before we even have the person come in for their initial interview. It's almost like pulling a credit report before you go farther with somebody in their consultation. You just want to get a baseline that they're not a crazy person. And then we go through a pretty rigorous interview process where we'll do a phone interview, get a feel for it, have them come in, initially meet with some combination of the two of the partners. So either me or Bill, Sam and Bill, or me and Sam will have to sit down with them. Then we have a follow-up meeting with whatever department they're going to be working in, whichever phase of the loan. We actually have the people in the job interview them. And that the purpose of that, or the way we frame that interview is, hey, we want you to sit down and learn what these people actually do on a day-to-day basis. We're not going to articulate it the same way they will be able to. So you can learn if it's actually something you get excited about. The flip side of that, though, is that we, after that meeting, discuss with those team members, and they also meet with our team captain for the back end and team captain for processing, and they have similar conversation. Hey, what do you do? What are you interested in? And then we all get together as a group, and anybody can pull the plug and say, nope, I didn't get a good vibe about them. At the size of our team, and I would say the size of any team, doesn't matter if it's just you and the first person you're going to hire, managing culture and protecting your team culture and only adding people that will enhance it, at least maintain, but hopefully enhance your culture, is more valuable than any other task that person will do. So let's say it's a front-end person and Eric and Garrett meet with them for 30 minutes. One, they're going to have a completely different interaction than they would have with me because it's a different context and it feels more like a level playing field. And so they might share things that they maybe shouldn't share or wouldn't share that we can learn insight on. And then Eric and Garrett or whoever's on the front end is going to have the primary role of training that person and bringing them up. And if they're invested in the hire based on being a participant and bringing that person on, they then are now that much more motivated for them to be successful because they said yes to bring them in. So that piece, and what was the last part of the question, Michelle? I should have written it down.
The last part of the question was, God, I think I had a brain fade too. I think you answered it though. It was, Dave, do you remember what I asked in the last part of the question?
Yeah, it was career growth.
Yeah, right.
How do we? Career growth. The growth plan is absolutely something that we share with them in the very beginning. And the way that piece of the puzzle that I mentioned earlier, which is that we don't hire loan officers from experienced loan officers. It's just too time-consuming and risky to retrain them in our model and value system. And I'm sure there's somebody out there that can come and integrate, but they would be a unicorn. So we like to grow organically with hiring people outside of the mortgage industry or hiring directly out of college or moving within the mortgage industry but outside of sales, right? So taking underwriters and processors and kind of converting them in and equipping them with the right tools. So we show the new hire person who's really going to be an admin for as long as they need to be an admin, that we show them the others that started in that role that are no longer in that role. And so we've really proven that they can grow based on the fact of the other person existing in that role. And for us, it seems like an ideal world to think, we would love to hire you into this role and you stay there for 20 years and we just don't have to rehire into it. It would be great for you to just the absolute expert in entering information into the system and pulling credit reports. The reality, though, is that as that person grows in skill, they become more valuable. And we tell our team, you will be paid equal to the challenge that you're able to solve, the problem that you're able to solve. And so as their skills grow, the problems they can solve grow. And it would be a waste of money to have them inputting applications. So we move them into a role that really matches and maybe stretches them a little bit, but matches the level of challenge that they can actually overcome.
Wow. I mean, those are spectacular questions, awesome answers. I mean, I've done a lot of interviews, I've been on a lot of calls, and I mean, this is absolutely one of the most valuable calls I've been on. I think everybody got a lot of value. I do want to add another follow-up for folks. For those of you who don't know Brian Bomar, possibly one of the most successful branch managers in the industry. The amount of volume that his branch does in Oklahoma City is just staggering in terms of just unit volume. And the reason I shine a light on this right now is he's got a very unique process in terms of bringing people in. A lot of what I heard you say, Danny, mimicked him. Most of the people he brings in are outside of the industry. One thing that he does is he gives people an IQ test. He makes a whole case around, why he not only gives a disc, but I can't remember the name of the IQ test. Oh, here it is, the Wonderlink online. He gives this intelligence test to everybody, and he finds that the people that, he goes through all his criteria. But I would just say, for those of you that are building a team, when it comes to the interview process, it's a longer answer than the one we had, but Brian spends a lot of time doing that. And again, definitely, a guy that could be a leader on today's call, adding mountains of value. So Michele and Danny, super grateful for the value you brought to the table. I'm going to close this call with each of you giving one answer on, what are you doing? Just kind of net it out between now and rocket launching the new year, first week in January. Just what are you doing to prepare yourself? And again, you could answer that. This is what I'm doing mentally to prepare myself. This is what I'm doing business. But just give us a minute. And Michele, you go first. What are you doing between now and first week in January to just be ready to rocket launch the new year?
I am actually taking 3 days of next week to completely detach from the computers and phones for a while. I need to refresh and regroup. And then I actually started with our realtor presentations and our realtor, getting out in front of the realtors. So our goal is, because we are a realtor-centric team, we have one appointment a week with each of our realtors, and we are now booked through February so far.
Oh, wow. Guys, did you hear that? 3 days of detachment and booked through February with realtor meetings. Wow, that's super smart. Love that. Danny, what are you doing, buddy?
Well, tonight is our team Christmas party, so tomorrow I'm probably recovering. And then after that, it's really just a ton of planning. It's so amazing, Michele, when it's like we're running just right in parallel. We've been setting up realtor appointments with listing agents that we worked with, and just so many loan officers in this month they're not active, so these agents are not hearing from whoever their normal guy is. We're staying present. We're being even more active on the phone, calling agents and setting those appointments than we were in the past, and then just getting super organized. We had a 4-hour planning meeting with our entire team yesterday, and we're just continuing to kind of leverage that momentum to get super organized on exactly what we're going to do month by month and almost day by day, so that we can hit our goal for the year.
Right on. Hey, well, thank you guys both for being so transparent, so vulnerable, and just all the leadership you bring to Mortgage Coach. I am so grateful for both of you. I am going to make this call, like these insane productivity calls, we make the recording available. They've been unlisted in private. I'm going to make this one public. I don't know that we're going to blast it out, but if anybody on the call wants to share this to anybody else in your organization, I just think it's such a special call. And I hope everybody has an incredible holiday, however you celebrate. For me, it'll be a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I won't talk to anybody, won't do another call until after the 1st. So have an incredible New Year's. Hopefully everybody's going to come into the first Friday of January ready to talk about how to be more insanely productive. So take care, everybody. Have a great holiday break, and we'll see you in a few weeks. Bye, Michele and Danny.
Happy holidays.
Take care.